Joining us now on the programme, a familiar face to those of you who may have been watching us for a while. Irris Makler is our former Jerusalem correspondent. She was based there for years until she left for her native Australia, approaching a year ago now, isn't it, Irris? Good to see your face once again on the programme. I mean, first of all, what's your overall memory, Irris, of reporting on the day of October the 7th?
My overall memory is being woken by sirens at 6:30 in the morning. They went on for hours, and we knew it was unusual rocket fire, but we had no idea what was coming in behind the rockets. And within the space of 24 hours, the death toll, the Israeli death toll at that stage was climbing, 200, 300, 400. I went to bed very late that night. I'd been filing all day. When I woke up, it was over 1,000. And I think Israelis went into shock at that massive attack, at the failure of Israeli intelligence, at the failure of the Israeli Defense Forces to step in quickly enough to prevent some of those deaths. And I think in a way, Stuart, Israel is still in shock. It's still October the 7th for many people, and it will be until the hostages are returned. That's the people taken hostage from the south of Israel on October the 7th. And until perhaps there's a ceasefire and some kind of reckoning with what happened here.
And of course, as the days and the weeks went on, the story was developing on a daily basis. And you obviously were at the heart of it, covering it for France 24. It must have been incredibly difficult as well.
It was I would say, looking back, and I've covered a lot of wars, this was the most stressful experience of my reporting life. Because it went on for so long, it's the longest war in Israel's history. Because it was so fraught, there's so much sorrow. You can barely watch the pictures from Gaza. You can barely hear the accounts of people who are, for example, at that music festival on October the 7th. It's so much sorrow. We are not in Gaza. You know that reporters were not able to enter Gaza. So we're not there. You're getting secondhand information. You're getting many, many people throughout the world, but certainly on social media, who make up their own minds as to what happened and deny facts. And you have to then go and verify them, even though you're not there. So it's a very stressful, all the stresses of our job were added. So the ordinary stresses of our day-to-day job and television and technical errors were added to the overwhelming sorrow of this story from that day on October the 7th till I left something like 15 months later.
Tell us as well about Donald Trump's deal. I mean, obviously, you've picked through the detail of that deal that's on the table at the moment that hopefully may or may not bring an end to this.
It's interesting, isn't it? You leave, but you don't leave the Middle East entirely. So I have been following closely. I still follow all the media, all the social media. I even interview people just to keep my hand in. And what I can see about this deal, what's interesting about it, I suppose, is that Donald Trump has gathered around him Arab nations, including Qatar and Turkey. So it's Donald Trump's friends in the Arab world. It's Hamas's friends in the Arab world. And he is pressuring Israel and they are pressuring Hamas. And you see something being forced on the parties 2 years after they have not been able to come to an agreement themselves. So what we see in this is something that says, these are the steps that it will begin with the return of all the hostages. I think that is a smart move, meant to be about 50, 20 of them still alive. There'll be Palestinian prisoners released, and there will be an end to the Israeli air attacks and military attack, in fact, ground offensive as well. And from there, there's going to be something set up for Gaza, as they call it, on the day after. What's interesting is what isn't in this deal. There's no mention of Palestinian sovereignty. There's no mention of Jerusalem. There's no mention of the West Bank. There's no mention of a timetable, an offensive. There's going to be a so-called international stabilization force. Who's going to be in that? We don't know. The other significant thing is that there isn't, from an Israeli right-wing messianist point of view, the tail that wags the dog inside this right-wing government. There isn't what their fever dream was. There's no annexation by Israel of Gaza. There's no deportation or transfer of the Palestinian population, forced or voluntary. There's no annexation. There's no Jewish settlement in the Gaza Strip. So the right wing, I think, in Israel is disappointed. It'll have to give up those fever dreams that for a moment they thought might be possible.
And assuming they do get over all those hurdles that you talked about there, Irris, I mean, there's also, of course, an enormous hurdle for individuals to get over as well, and that's those deep levels of trauma, really, that are ingrained in everybody.
That's right. I think it's going to take, people have been asking me, is there likely to be a peace deal to follow? This is a ceasefire deal and a rebuilding of Gaza deal if it goes through. Is there likely to be a peace deal? But I think people on both sides are so battered and so broken, and they have to make their peace with all that they've been through, all that they've inflicted on each other. And I think that coming through that, there were very high levels of hatred in this society, even before October the 7th, on both sides of the line. So in the West Bank, in Israel and in Gaza. But now people are so battered and broken that they're going to have to plough back through all that hatred so that they can get to a stage where they can reach out their hands to each other for a better future, I think.
And Irris, you had to move away from Jerusalem, not for reasons of the war, other reasons. But what's it been like? Obviously, I can tell from what you're saying, you're still following it incredibly closely. But what's it been like observing it from outside Israel?
I tell you what's been good. That stress level and that sorrow level have declined, even though I do follow it very closely, too closely, you might say. Nevertheless, it's not that day-to-day suffering that I endured along with the populations in Gaza and in Israel. So it's a little bit of breathing space for me and an ability to see better, to see Donald Trump's role more clearly, to see the role of Qatar more clearly, to see the politics more clearly when you're not in it, when you're a little bit away from it. I find that very helpful, actually. I find that a good thing. There's an Israeli saying that the former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon used to quote, what you see from here, what you see from there, you don't see from here. When you're a right-wing Israeli leader, but then you become the Prime Minister, suddenly you negotiate in a different way. And I think I'm going through some of that, where what I saw from Jerusalem is not what I see from Sydney, even though I do follow closely.
Irris, good to talk to you on the programme once again. Very nice to see your face, and best of luck to you, of course, Irris Makler, our former Jerusalem correspondent, joining us once again here on France 24.